All right, now we're learning the HafTorah for this week's Torah reading. The HafTorah, as you know, is usually a portion from the prophets, sometimes it's from the other writings, that we read after the regular Torah reading. And usually it has some sort of a connection to in topic or something to do with this Torah portion. This Torah portion is talking about counting the Jews. And the HafTorah is from Hosea, the prophet Hosea. The prophet Hosea, he was in the last part of the first temple. And he especially, the last part of the 10 tribes in the first temple. The 10 tribes were, after King Solomon died. King Solomon was like king for 40 years. And he began when he was 30 years old. So when King Solomon died, his son took over, and his son was not good, and the kingdom split. And the upper part of the kingdom was called Israel, and the bottom part was called, the upper part was called Israel. Sometimes it was called Ephraim. Sometimes it was called Yosef. And the bottom part, Ephraim, after the first king over there was Yerovam ben Nevat. That he came from, that's the tribe that he came from. So anyway, things descended rapidly in the kingdom of Israel, and especially they worshiped the golden calf, and they worshiped this thing called the Baal, and there was something called Ashtarte. Anyway, whatever idolatry. Back then, there was a big desire for idolatry. I don't think there's anything even vaguely similar to it now. It was like really, really strong, to the point that people knew that they were doing wrong and they couldn't stop. The king of Israel, he was a genius. He was a holy person and everything, but he couldn't stop himself from idolatry. Anyway, whatever it was, comes along the prophet Hosea, and he says, God, get rid of the Jewish people. Get rid of. You see, there's no hope for them. No, there's no help. So God said, listen, are you going to listen to what I say? Sure, of course, God will tell you. He says, go and get married to a prostitute. And she's going to have children, call the names of the children. So I'm calling the names of the children after what you just said. So he's one of the children, he called him, what was the first one? I forget what the first one. The second son he called, no, the first one was called Lo Rachoma, no mercy. The second was called Lo Ami, they're not my people. And I think the third one was called Jezreel or something. Let's see what the series was. 1 second. What it is. And the third one, the last one was called, the first one was called Jezreel. Okay. Anyway, so what was it? Hosea was saying, get rid of the Jewish people. So God said, you can't say anything like that. You can't say it like that. So take these, your children, no mercy, not my people. That's what you're going to call them. And God said, okay, now divorce your wife. So he said, no, I was just sort of kidding. I really like this, my wife. And so that's where this prophecy starts off. Here we go. Let's go. And of course, the Jewish people didn't listen to him, and the 10 tribes got put into exile, and only Mashiach will bring them back. How he's going to do that, I have no idea, but he will. Okay, so all of a sudden, he says, he was just cursing the Jewish people out, and he was saying the worst things, and God is going to get rid of you. And then he gets this prophecy, V'haya mispar, and there will be the number of the Jewish people. That's probably the connection between this week's Torah reading and the HafTorah. The number of the Jewish people will be like the sand on the sea. Calling numbers that will not be able to be measured, and you can't count it. And instead of saying by them, Lo Ami, that you're not my people, which that's what he called one of his sons, they'll say, B'nai Keilcha, you are the sons of the living God. So Rashi has a beautiful explanation in here. Says, what's going on over here? First of all, he said, Hosea was saying these terrible things about the Jews, and the Jews really deserved it. And all of a sudden, he's saying the Jewish people will be like without any number. So he brings an example over here. He says, it's like a king that he wants to divorce his wife. And all of a sudden, somebody comes along and convinces the king, or the king himself, let's see how it goes. And he calls a scribe. And he says to the scribe, the king calls the scribe, and he says, come to the castle quick. I want to divorce my wife. So the scribe goes there, and in the meantime, meanwhile, the king changes his mind. He starts thinking about it, and he said, listen, maybe she's not that bad, maybe I'm also not such good. Anyway, Omer HaMelech, Efshar Yetzeh Sofer Zeh Mikan Chaluk, Kolomar Libo Chaluk. So the scribe is now going to leave. I'm going to tell him not to write the divorce bill, and he's going to say probably in another minute the king's going to change his mind. So I said, you know what? The king said, you know what I'm going to do? He calls after the scribe, and he says, I want you to write for my wife, the one I was just about to divorce, that you double her dowry. Right before I got married to her, I said that, if we ever get divorced, I'll give you $1 million, or if I die, you get $1 million. Write it now, you get $2 million. So it's the same type of a thing. God was thinking, the Jewish people, they're really making a lot of trouble for me. And Hosea said, so get rid of them. So he said, whoa, that, I never would have gone that far. Instead of getting rid of them, I'm going to double it. So the number of Jewish people will be without any end. You won't be able to count them. Okay, simple meaning. V'nichbetzu b'nei Yehuda, and the people of Yehuda and b'nei Yisrael. Yehuda is the lower two tribes and the 10 tribes. And one day Mashiach will join them all together, because in the second temple it didn't happen. So this is the end of the first temple, right? And and there will be a leader for all of them, one head, and he will go to the land of, take them all to the Holy Land, and this will be the day of the gathering together. Who is this head? It'll be David Malcolm. It'll be the Mashiach. The Mashiach will gather them all together. Here it says, someone wrote Echad, Zem Melech HaMashiach. This is Rabbi David Kimchi, the Rabbi. The Melech HaMashiach, and also says, Yimnel Lahon Reisha Chad made the base of David. There'll be a leader from the house of King David, and he will lead all the Jews. Not like it is now that there's one leader from Ephraim and one leader from one leader. He'll gather all the Jews together. And that's pretty good. It goes on. Omru lachechem, say to your brothers, Ami, my people, velachotechem, and your sisters, Ruchama, I yes have having mercy. Because he called his one son, you're not my people, and no mercy. So he said, now you're going to call them my people and mercy. You're going to have mercy on them. And God says, don't worry about it. The Jewish people have made me a lot of trouble, but you're going to see, it's going to be an amazing end. I'm going to have mercy on them. They're my people. I love them. Ribo be'imchem, fight with your mother. Imu, ribo, ki hi lo ishti, she's not my wife. V'anochi lo isha, and I am not her husband. V'taser zenuneha, and she should remove her harlotry from her. V'nefafel mi ben shadeh, and her whatever is licentiousness from between her breasts. In other words, you Jewish people, you're acting like a harlot. Now he's going back to being harsh again, right? You Jewish people, you're acting like a harlot, and you're running around with all the non-Jewish nations, and you're trying to appease all of the nations that are around you, like now with the United Nations. All this says, stop your harlotry, stop selling yourself cheap in the street, and you're not my wife, right? You're not acting like my wife. You want me to divorce you? Keep acting like this. Pen avshitena aruma, because maybe I will strip her of all of her clothes. Vetzagtia kayomi voldan, and I will, how do you say, present her like the day she was born. Vasamtia kamidbar, and I'll make her like a desert. In other words, I'll strip the land of Israel from all of its beauty, and it'll be like a desert, which basically that's what it was for the last 2,000 years until the Jews returned to it. Eretz Siava ve'mitena b'tzama, and I will kill them with thirst. With thirst. That's what it is. So we see that the Jews, they returned to the land of Israel, even though they were not religious, but nevertheless, God says, I have mercy on all the Jewish people. The Jewish people are my people, and no matter what, I'm going to have mercy on them, because it doesn't work any other way. God tried all these other things, and it didn't work. So God said, nevertheless, I'm going to strip the land of Israel, just like a harlot of Israel. You want to prostitute Israel all over the place and sell her. So I'll strip her naked, and I'll stand. Everybody will see why did I ever think about, trying to appease these people? There's nothing there. It's just an empty old country. It's just an empty, desolate place. Then I won't have any mercy on her children. Why? Because b'nei zenunim elu, all these Jewish people from the land of Israel, they're sons of other men. All these other men, they had relations with Israel, and so all the Jewish people, they're not my people. They're not my people. God is threatening them. Of course, they are His people, but nevertheless, God is still threatening them. Why? Because their mother prostituted herself, the hovisha horatam, and she shamed their birth. Right? She shamed the birth of this, and she said, "Ki amras," your mother. In other words, this is like a parable. It goes back and forth between the land of Israel and the people of Israel. She said, "I'm going to go after Ma'avai, after all these men that love me. V'nachani lachmi, they gave me my bread and my water and my garments, my wool and my this." But she's selling herself on the streets, and she said, "Oh, these old men are paying attention to me. Though that's my real friends. They really like me, and they're giving me money and everything. I have a good time. This is what we call true love, right? That's what the ridiculous, stupid Jewish people are saying. Says, and therefore, that's what you think, huh? Says God. In other words, the Jewish people are straying after all sorts of weird idolatry and all sorts of bizarre things. Like you see what's going on now, even in Israel today, right? All these bizarre things. The land is filled with these missionaries and these crazy stuff. I mean, just in weird, decadent marches and things like that. This is supposed to be the Holy Land. Therefore, anisach et darkeich b'sirin. Therefore, I will cover your way with thorns, sirim, the gedarti et gedera, and I will make a wall around it and a fence so that you won't find so you won't find the way back. You won't find the way back. You like the non-Jews so much, okay, you'll see. Go with them, and you want to come back. You won't be able to find the way back. You won't be able to find. You'll get so confused, you won't be able to find the way back. And that's really what it is. There's all these Jews that are scattered around, Israelis that are scattered around in India and all these crazy places. And if it wasn't for Chabad going out there and schlepping them back, not even one would come back. Not even one. I mean, they're waking up these people. I was there. I was in India. I met Israelis when I was there that never put on tefillin in their life. They never in their life put on tefillin. They were so excited. They were so amazed. Just totally, and they had friends that were in drugs. Anyway, V'radfua kol me'ovel says then afterwards she'll have to run after all of those people that paid money for her, but she won't find them. She won't find them anymore. Right? I'll go back to my husband, my first husband. As soon as she doesn't find favor in their eyes anymore for whatever reason it is. So all of a sudden she realizes they weren't her friends at all. They were just doing it for their own benefit and their own pleasure. She says, you know what? Maybe I'll go back to my original husband. In other words, the Jews will say, listen, I see all this idolatry and these crazy things that I'm doing. It's really that doesn't care about me. They just want to suck my soul out of my body. But that's all they want. They just want to care about. They don't care about me. They just wanted to destroy the Jewish people, whatever. So therefore, the Jewish people say, "Hey, these people don't like me. All these people, all the nations in the United Nations or whatever, they're my friends because I give in to them." And no, I realized that they don't like me at all. Therefore, I'm going to go back to my first husband, Kitovli, as because better then than it is now. Going back to my husband in the house, war, peace and quiet house is better. All this ridiculous, the decadent action, selling myself on the streets and having all this drugs and all the things. Who thinks the world is really spinning around? And it's totally meaningless. The whole thing is totally empty. That she doesn't know. I'm the one, says God. I was always the one. She thought that where did she get all of her plenty from? From the non-Jews. The non-Jews. She doesn't know that I was the one that was always giving her wheat and her wine and her oil and her money and gold. And she just gave it to the Baal. The Baal is this idolatry. Use it for the Baal. And what's going on? You get all these Jews that wander around the whole world and they become tremendously successful, right? They become successful and they have money and they have this, and they think, look, that's pretty good. You leave Judaism, you're doing great. Not only am I doing great, but all these rabbis, they're coming knocking on my door asking for donations. So we see that going away from Torah and commandments is a good thing. Look at all this money. Says God, you don't understand. I'm the one that gave you the money all the time. I gave it to you. You're the one the plenty came from me. I had mercy on you. What would you like? That I would cut off your legs or something, take off your eyes or something like that, right? I'm acting you in a way of love. I gave you the whole business. And what did you do? You didn't realize it. And you're giving it to the Baal. In other words, this is not a new thing now that's starting. This happened in the second temple, in the first temple, back there in the first temple. And you have to realize that before the first temple, a few hundred years, there weren't even any Jewish people, right? The Jewish people got out of Egypt like 800 years before the destruction of the first temple. Something like that. So before that, there basically wasn't any Jewish people. As soon as they got out, they started worshiping the idol, the golden calf, and then they worshiped this. So God is saying, listen, the fact of the matter is that everything you've had, any plenty that you've had up to now, is because of me. And it's a pretty bizarre thing because the Jewish people in the first temple, like there were the 10 tribes, like I said, and they served idols big time. They were big time idolaters, really, and they succeeded. And it was good, and they would succeed in everything. And if they would, like when the Jews came into Israel before the first temple was built, that was like 400 years, 440 years. So there was all the what's called the shoftim, the judges. So the story was the same thing. The judges were there; they would make the people adhere to Torah and the commandments and everything would be good. And then the judge would die, and the people would say, "Hey, let's do whatever we want to. Let's be like the non-Jews around us." And they did it, and would work for a while. And then all of a sudden, the non-Jews would attack them, and the Jews would cry out to God, and God would send another great leader, and he would make everybody change their ways, and they would defeat their enemies. Everything would be good, and all the Jewish people would go back to Torah and the commandments. And then that great leader, he would die, and then he would die, and then the Jewish people would say, "Well, let's be like the non-Jews." And they would do it, and it would be good for a while, and then the non-Jews would attack them. And this happened over and over and over again, like 15 times, right? So that's the life. That's of course the Jewish people. But therefore, says God, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back and take back all of my wine and my oil. I'm going to take back my dagani, my wheat, and my in the time, and the wine, and I will take back all the wool and the linen to cut that has been up to now covering your nakedness. And this is what happened in the first temple. The first temple, it says, now I will reveal how ugly you are, at Nidlasa, how ugly you are in front of those people who claim to love you. and no one will be able to save you from my hands. It was what was in the first temple. In the first temple, they tried to make all these alliances with all these other nations and everything like that. And when it came down to it, all the nations just left them. They just abandoned them, and they were with. So God says, "I'm going to take you, and I'm going to scatter you around, and you're going to be naked." And that's what's happened with the 10 tribes. Nobody knows to this day where exactly they are. There's all sorts of theories. There's theories that say the American Indians are. There's one theory that the English people are one of the 10 tribes. We talked about that before. Because to this day, the whole royal family, all the males, they get circumcised at 8 days old. So I think maybe they're there's all of a sudden always pops up, somebody, the Japanese, the Indian, it pops up, someone says, "Oh, we're the real Jews," They got these guys from where is it from? These black guys from New York. We're the real Jews. We're the real Jews. Yeah, these guys that your father was a Jew. Your father told you something about being your grandfather. He suffered because he was a Jew. He knew he was a Jew. He used to go to shul. Your bubby is. It's the most insane thing. But anyway, everybody's a Jew, right? So all of a sudden, when God takes all the good back from them, then all of a sudden they see, maybe we made a mistake. Let's see. And the Hashavti kala masosach, I'll take away all of your joy, Chag, and all of your holidays, and I will. How do you say? I will negate all of your appointed times. You won't be happy anymore, you Jewish people, right? You think you're going to have happiness by leaving Judaism? You're going to see. Vashimosi gafnam, and I will destroy all of the vines and the date trees that I said I will give, that you said you were going to give them to me. Well, instead you gave them to all of your paramours, whatever they're called, the idols and the non-Jews and things like that. And so therefore, I'm going to make this whole thing into just like a big forest. And who's going to eat them? Not you, the animals of the field will eat them. And the land of Israel is going to be destroyed. That was the upper part of Israel, right? That they're called nowadays, what are they called? The Shomron, and what do they call it? Samaria. And I will visit upon you the days of idol worship, that you worshiped all these idols, and that you offered incense to them, and you put on you adorned yourself with all sorts of earrings, and you went after your what they call your lovers, and you've forgotten me, says God. You've forgotten me, right? You're having a good time? Well, now you're going to see who really was the boss in the whole time. I have surveillance cameras, the whole thing. I knew it. Not only that, all the money and the things you were doing, it was all me. I did the whole thing. I was the one who gave you success. I was the one who gave you beauty in the eyes of the people. I was the one who gave you all these things, and you threw it over your shoulder. You rejected the whole entire business. Therefore, Hine, behold, Ani mifateh. I said, God, now this is like her husband. God said, my wife, Jewish people, have gone into harlotry. You're how do you say, standing in the shadows, wasting your life away on the streets. So I am going to bring her back. I am going to seduce her, and I'll take her into the desert, and I'll speak to her heart. I'll speak to her heart. Says Rashi said, I will try everything I can to entice her to return back to me. Return back to me. And I will return back. This is like in the second temple. I'll give back the vineyards. I'll bring back the vineyards. Then at Emek Achor, and the valley of worry or misery, I'll change it to Petach Tikva, to opening of hope. The Anta Shema, and I will. The word of hope. The Anta Shema, and she will be youthful there, like the days of her youth. and like the day of her, how do you translate it? And the days of her youth, like when she came up from the land of Egypt, right? Remember when the Jews came out of Egypt, so they were fresh and they knew about God and they all believed in God, and etc. In other words, there's going to be a second temple. And on that day, then the Jewish people will call me my husband. And they won't say anymore my master, Baali. They won't call it. In other words, it'll be a love relationship between me and the Jewish people. I'll take away the names of all these idols from your mouth, and they'll never be mentioned again in their name. And I will make a covenant on that day with the animals of the field and with the birds of the heaven, for remes adaman, the creeping things on the ground, the keshet, the cherev, milchama, and the bows, like bows and arrows, and the swords of war and war, I will break from the land. And you'll be able to go to sleep in certainty. And certainty. And basically, that's what it is right now, right? But what do you mean? The Arabs are shooting missiles at us because we invite them to. They're shooting missiles at us from our land, our own land. But basically, everybody around us is afraid of us, except when we show them that we're afraid of them. So, we just want to be friends. All they want to do is be friends. So the Rebbe says, here we go. Now, there's some people that say this every time they put on tefillin. They put on tefillin, the hand tefillin, they say, right? They say, Arasticha li la'olam. I will marry you forever. Arasticha li, and this is not really again married. This is like, what do you say? Engaged. You will be engaged to me. Here it says betrothed. You will be engaged. I will take you as a wife forever. I will take you to me with justice, with righteousness and justice, and with kindness and with mercy. Like God says here, what does he mean? Just like it was with Abraham. Like it says, Abraham, I said, I knew him, that he would command his children after him to do charity and etc. As therefore, I gave him all sorts of mercy and I will protect him. Elokecha lecha, at the Brit, I will remember the covenant and the agreement that I made with Abraham. And said, when you stop doing what I wanted to, so I forgot the covenant. I ignored the covenant with Abraham, but when the Jewish people go back and start doing charity again and justice, like I said before, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu God will add on to them more mercy and more love and kindness, and will be a crown for all of them. He will put this crown and put it on the heads of the Jews, namely what? Tzedek, Mishpat, Chesed, Rachamim. I will marry you, Jewish people, with these four things. And here's the last sentence. And I will marry you with faith, and you will all know God. And the reward, says Rashi, and the reward for faith that you had for me, even when you were in exile, and by all the things that the prophets promised that they'll gather the Jews together, is in that merit I will gather you all to me. So even though the Jews made a lot of trouble, but nevertheless, God in the end will transform it all to a beautiful wedding and symphony of love and justice and kindness and mercy. Good. Now let's learn Pirkei Avot. We didn't learn it yesterday. Skipped it. And that is the HafTorah from today from Hosea. If you want to, you can look at it up to yourself. Hosea, the second chapter of Hosea. Now let us learn Pirkei Avot.